This is Amner Hunter from Amner Hunter Studios, your host, and I'm very happy to be sharing another video tutorial with you about audio mixing. We checked before about some background information, some theory that is going to help you a lot uh, before getting into actual mixing. So I recommend you that if you haven't checked out my previous tutorials of this topic, um, go watch them. It's going to be very useful to you, and we need that information, that background information, to support this. So, in order for us to start mixing, we need to know that those topics. So go ahead and check them out. I'm going to put the link right here. And this time around, we're going to be checking the preparation stage for mixing. I have here on my DAW on Cubase 5. I have already set up a session with a bunch of multi-track files of our recordings of a heavy metal song from the band Dark Ride. The song is called Burning Bridges, and I want to thank Dark Ride for putting the files of the recording online so we can download them to practice. I'm going to put in the description the link where you can go to the page. There are tracks from every genre: pop, hip hop, metal, country, blues, jazz, rock. And a lot of bands put the files there so we can practice. So this is a heavy metal song. As you can see, all the files of the recording are here. The kick drum, snare up, snare down. They put those were the names that they put on the files. Hi-hat, all the drums, toms, cymbals, the drums room, 1, 2, and 3, the bass, electric guitars, lead vocals, and backing vocals. So I just imported these files into my DAW. I haven't moved anything. The colors are also the same as I imported it. I haven't changed anything. So before diving into actual starting mixing of a song, we need to do some preparation before. So first and foremost, you will have a devil of a time trying to mix your track if you can't hear it properly. You will want a good output device. Speakers or studio monitors are preferable to headphones because they give a better picture of the stereo image of the music. After acquiring a good pair of speakers, you will need to spend some time and money fine-tuning your room acoustics for ideal monitoring. Since me or maybe some of you doesn't have the proper room or the proper acoustic treatment for your mixing environment, one thing I highly recommend is to have different devices where we can check our mix. For example, I mix in my studio monitors. I'm going to show you a picture right now. Those are Fostex monitors 4.0. I also mix in my studio headphones. I have two pairs of them. There's a picture right here. I mix also in my computer speakers. I will show you a picture. I also mix in my laptop speakers. And finally, I mix in my iPhone headphones, the ones that go into your ear, and in the iPhone speaker also. So these are the different advices where I mix or where I check out my mixes. This is useful because maybe your monitors are too bassy or too bright, and you can think that your mix is sounding that way. But when you put the mix into your, maybe your headphones or your car stereo, the mix sounds other way. So it's important to be checking the mixes in different devices. And since we don't have a proper room or acoustic treatment, a proper mixing environment, we cannot rely on just on one device. That's why I highly recommend you that thing. So another thing that I highly recommend you is to have reference tracks. For example, if you're mixing a heavy metal track, like in this case, it will be awesome if you reference when you are mixing. Actually, when you are recording, you can put a track from your favorite artist, so you have that reference. We are not trying to match exactly one mix to another. We're just simply trying to have a reference, uh, because in that way we're going to choose our sounds uh, more professionally, and it means that our mix, our recording is going to translate better in other environments. And for example, if you know your different devices where you are monitoring, for example, if you find that your mix sounds too bassy, maybe it's the monitors, maybe it's the place where you are mixing at the corner of your room, for example. So that's why I encourage you to check professional mixes. For example, if a mix sounds bassy or very bright in that place, uh, you know that your mix also will sound bright. Is because you have been referencing to that professional track. So these are the advices I can give you about monitoring, and also, well, headphones are cheaper than speakers and require no tuning of room acoustics to perform well. Even if you own a good pair of speakers, you will still want to check your mixes on headphones, like I said, because they can allow you to hear certain fine details in the music that would not show up otherwise. A fantastic monitoring system is not necessary for producing fantastic mixes, but it makes things easier. The worse your monitoring system is, the harder it will be to get good results, but it will always be possible. Um, Another thing we have to check out about preparation for mixing is the volume setting. In order to get the best results out of your monitoring equipment, you will need to make sure that you are monitoring at good volume. A good volume is not too quiet and not too loud. In general, it's best to it's best to have a medium volume. There are many reasons to use moderation in your volume settings. The first one is that if your volume is too loud, then your ears will quickly become fatigued, and you will lose your ability to make accurate judgments about the mix. Another point here is that if your volume is too quiet, then you will not be able to hear fine details in the music, and this will also impair your ability to make accurate judgments about the mix. Another thing about having mix about mixing in at a conservative level is that your ear's frequency response changes with volume. The louder music will also seem to have more bass and treble, or more bass and high frequencies. If you monitor too loudly, then you will mix your music with too little bass and treble. If your monitor is too quiet, then you will mix with too much bass and treble, because at low volume you don't hear those. So I recommend a middle level there. For example, when working on drums and percussion tracks and anything that needs to be really kicking and punchy, I would recommend working at a somewhat lower level than you would, for, because if you do this, you will probably end up with a punchier result. If you can make your drums sound punchy at a low volume, then they will sound really punchy when you turn them up. On the other hand, getting your drums to sound punchy at a high volume is not challenge, and the result won't always translate to lower volumes. Okay, another point in the preparation of mixing are the plugins. And since we are not mixing in analog world, we are mixing in the digital world. We are not mixing in consoles and analog mixers. We are mixing in the computer, in the box. And we're going to need to use plugins. And so I'm going to show you the different plugins I like to use when mixing. For example, one important thing in mixing is the equalization, the EQ, right? So for the purpose of this of mixing tutorials, I'm going to be mixing with different tools, different equalizations. Different equalizers, different compressors. For example, I'm going to be using the equalizer that comes with Cubase, which is Studio EQ. It's a 4-band equalizer, right? I'm going to use this equalizer. I'm going to be using also the one from Waves, for example, the Q4, which is a 4-band equalizer too, but it's a different, maybe a different sound. I'm going to be using this as well. I'm going to be using one equalizer that I like a lot. It's here. It's this Slick EQ. It's a 4-band equalizer too, but this doesn't have a graphic interface. It's just knobs. I'm going to tell you later what is the advantages of not having an equalizer that have a graphic view of what you're doing. This is just knobs. So I'm going to be using this. Also, I'm going to be using the channel strip from Waves, which is an emulator of a SSL console. SSL. So this is the part of the equalizer. It's a 4-bands equalizer too. And here is the compressor. I'm going to be using this equalizer with just knobs and this compressor also. I'm going to be using compressor from Cubase, the ones that come stock plugin. This I'm going to be using the Waves compressor, which is this. It has a graphic view here. And I'm going to be using this also. That I love this compressor. It's based on SSL2, analog simulation. So those are mainly the compressors that I'm going to be using for mixing tutorial purposes. And so you can hear the settings in one compressor and then hear the settings in another compressor. And also for effects, I'm going to be using reverbs from Cubase. I like them a lot. This one, for example, it has different presets here. I'm going to be using these reverbs for vocals and for snares and toms and guitars, for example. And I'm going to be using reverbs. I'm going to use. I like also this reverb, and this is a free plugin, classic reverb. And we could use also maybe from Waves. another reverb plugin. And from delays, I'm going to be using the ones that comes with Cubase, the stock plugins. This is a stereo delay. There's a mono delay too that I'm going to be using, and I like this delay too. I have a lot of delays and reverbs here, but I find that I work faster with this with the delays that I know the most. So yeah, those are the plugins that I'm going to be using. Um, and one thing I would want to say about this is that the plugins that comes with your software uh, are very very good plugins. So if you want good mixes or awesome mixes, you don't necessarily need to purchase third party plugins. You can mix awesome songs. You can have fantastic results with the plugins that comes with your DAW. So the better we know our instruments and the more abilities we have as a mixer is the what that is going to have an impact on the mix, not the plugins that we have. So it's important to understand that what is most important to get a good mix is to have abilities to mix, not the tools. The tools are going to help you, but they're not going to. If you have expensive plugins, your not necessarily your mix will be fantastic. You have to know the tools and you have the ability to use them. So, well, another thing we have to prepare for our mix session is obviously our most important piece of gear is our ears, right? So we have to develop a relationship with your ears that is based on trust and love. And well, the love part is that we have to keep our ears in good shape. Don't abuse them with excessive loud sounds to take care of them. Uh, and we have to trust our ears. When we continue to mixing and to practicing, we're going to gain security and we're going to feel confident about what we hear is what we like, and we're going to be educating our ears. Uh, so we have to understand sometimes our ears quickly get used to sounds. So we might have a bad sound and our ears get used to them. But we need to educate our ears to do that. And to accomplish that, we need to keep on practicing and mix as much as possible. Because the thing that for example, great engineers have is experience. They might have great studios, great studio environments, great gear, but what defines their work and that absolutely great work is their experience. They have years and years and years mixing. They learned from mistakes, and that's what makes a good engineer. The experience, the more experience you have mixing, the more ability you will develop, and the more your mixes will be awesome. Trust me, because from my experience, I have almost 2 years mixing, and in this audio world, and I have get better by practicing. And obviously, the knowledge and the theory and everything is important. But the more you practice, the more quicker you're going to develop your ability. And the last point here is that the sound selection is the last part of mixing preparation. This is the one thing that will make or break your mix. You have to make sure that you have selected sounds that will naturally fit well together. Essentially, you have to pick out your sounds and compose your tracks such that they minimize masking and fill out the frequency spectrum nicely, uh, striking a balance between fullness and clarity. Uh, this comes in the recording phase. If the more professional your recordings are, the more professional your mixes are going to be. So you have to make sure that the files that you are going to mix are files of good quality recordings, um, that and the people who sent you the files, or if you were the recording engineer, you tried your best and to get the best possible sounding recordings. So this is the last part of the mixing preparation, uh, to feel that you are working with great recording files. This is very important to have to get the better sound of the source. So this is it for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. As always, feel free to follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, Instagram. And we'll see you. I'm going to catch you later with the next tutorial, so you can hear this heavy metal song, and we can start actually in the mixing process. Thank you very much. I hope that is useful to you, and don't forget to subscribe. And well, have a great day or night. See you.